Progress and the Scottsdale Independent. Upon request and at my discretion, candidates will be allowed a 30-second rebuttal if they're directly addressed in a question. Now, timing with this virtual forum is critical with so many candidates involved, so we ask that the candidates respect the time frame. We will provide a time warning, and if you exceed your response, your microphone will be muted. Finally, at the conclusion, we will offer a 1-minute closing statement to each candidate. So now we're going to meet the candidates and hear their 1-minute opening statements. We will begin in alphabetical order by last name. So first up, Michael Arabach.
Scottsdale, the city we love and chose. From the McDowell Mountain Preserve in the north to iconic Old Town in the south, Scottsdale truly is a special place. We, the residents of Scottsdale, embody its rugged individualism and frontier spirit. Hi, I'm Michael Auerbach, a Scottsdale resident, a small business owner in the hospitality industry, and lover of our country and our city. Like many of you, I'm concerned about Scottsdale's future. We face challenges on many fronts. To meet these challenges, we need enhanced tourism, smart growth, and a voice for the protection of individual liberties and values. As we go into a new decade, I see a bright future for Scottsdale. We can preserve our unique character and grow for the future. I felt a deep connection to Scottsdale long before I moved here. My father is also in the hospitality industry.
Mr. Auerbach, that's the minute there. Thank you.
That's why I'm running for Scottsdale.
That's the minute, so I'm gonna have to cut you off. Next up, we'll have Tammy Caputi.
I'm Tammy Caputi, and I'm always running. I run my own business, providing lighting and supplies to electricians. I run my 3 kids back and forth to local schools. I run marathons, and now I'm running for city council to be a positive, forward-thinking voice for Scottsdale. I want Scottsdale to be even better for my kids than it's been for me. My passion is the future of our city, our livability and quality of place. This means economic vitality, a diverse and resilient economy, quality development with public benefits, and collaboration with our schools so our children can get a top-notch education and find good jobs from hire to retire. We need council members who will govern with facts and open minds and integrity, who will create consensus and promote collaboration, who will have the training, business skills, and creativity to help rebuild our local economy. I've spent the last 20 years bringing light and power all over Arizona, and now I want to help shine light on Scottsdale.
Thank you, Ms. Caputi. Bill Crawford, you're up next. You're on mute, Bill.
I'm Bill Crawford. Moved to Scottsdale in 1996. I immediately became involved in community issues. I opened up my own business in 1997. I have owned my own business continuously in downtown Scottsdale for 22 years. I've been in business for myself for 42 years. I have been a community leader with lots of issues in downtown. I am known for facing tough issues and bringing people together to look for resolutions. In the business community, I have been blessed with lots and lots of accolades for my work, including, there's a newspaper you might have heard of, the Scottsdale Progress. We were named as the best place to work out and the best personal trainer for 2019. I was also inducted into the National Fitness Hall of Fame for my life's work in the fitness industry, and I achieved the Arthur Jones Lifetime Achievement Award. I have a background in law enforcement, 10 years with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, working all kinds of details. So I have that also, and all these things come together to.
All right, Bill, that's our minute. So we're gonna have to move on. Next up, we have Tom. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Next up, we have Tom Durham.
Hi, I'm Tom Durham, and I'm running for the city council because I believe that many Scottsdale citizens have lost faith in the council majority. I became involved in Scottsdale politics because of the Desert Discovery Center. It was clear to me that the citizens of Scottsdale were overwhelmingly opposed to the Desert Discovery Center, and I couldn't understand why the council majority pushed this plan in spite of the opposition. So I raised my hand and volunteered. And my good friend Betty Janik asked me to serve as the treasurer of the Protect Our Preserve PAC. And the rest is history. Scottsdale citizens overwhelmingly voted against the Desert Discovery Center. And following the Desert Discovery Center, I began to pay more attention to the council majority. They voted in favor of the marquee in spite of public opposition. And they supported Southbridge, which was so unpopular.
Hey, Tom, that's our minute.
Okay.
Sorry, I know it's short. Betty Janik, you're up next.
Hi, I've been a resident of Scottsdale for 16 years. I was born and raised in Chicago. I earned my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and married my husband of 48 years. I lived in the Denver area for 23 years where I raised my family. I have worked as a research chemist, science teacher, medical practice manager, and realtor. The primary responsibility of a council member is to represent the citizens. City council majority have lost this focus, resulting in unrestrained development that is very disruptive to the Scottsdale community. Just look at the failed Desert Discovery Center and Southbridge 2. I have proven my leadership and commitment to the citizens. In 2016, I filed the paperwork to form the Protect Our Preserve Corporation. I assumed legal and fiduciary responsibility, leading to passage of Prop 420. Since then, I've served as the president of the Coalition for Greater Scottsdale and a member of the Bond Pact Committee. I believe it's time for a change to get a resident-friendly council.
Thank you, Ms. Janik. That's our minute. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Becca Lenig.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm Becca Lenig, a 22-year resident of South Scottsdale from Chicago by way of Wyoming. I met my husband my first year of college, and that was in Illinois. And together we have 3 amazing children, a bonus child, which is my daughter-in-law, and our grandson, who's going to be 1 this week. Strong schools and a great education is paramount to a successful future for our city. Giving back to the community has always been a priority for me, and I've been a volunteer for the past 22 years. As an ambassador, I've been serving as the point of contact for visitors and residents alike. I proudly serve on the Arizona Realtor Association Executive Board, and I'm past president for the local Scottsdale Association of Realtors. That shows that I'm committed to property rights and values and protecting those. South Scottsdale has been underrepresented for over 15 years. We haven't had anyone south of Shea on council for that period of time. I live, work, play, and volunteer in South Scottsdale, and we need a voice that can understand the direct impact of the decisions that are made at City Hall. Our infrastructure is what.
Thank you, Ms. Lenig. That's our minute. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have John Little. You got mute on there, John. John, you got mute. Should be in the.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
In this moment, I feel compelled to share my great disappointment in not being able to be with all our viewers in person. This is indeed an awkward format and inadequate at best. But the most important thing to note is the disruption and the inconvenience and the challenges that our viewers have faced in trying to keep their businesses open and their incomes going and their kids educated during this really difficult time. And on top of that, being safe and secure. So I want to acknowledge the sacrifice that our citizens have been making in this very difficult time. I'm not going to recite my long history of community service. You can look that stuff up on my website. Right now, I hope you get a sense that this is not a time for inexperience. Scottsdale is $1 billion enterprise with 250,000 citizens who are all shareholders and close to 10 million customers who visit us each year. Leading in this environment requires empathy, compassion, detailed knowledge of the systemic problems that give rise to our fears and division. Having worked for nearly 2 decades.
Thank you, Mr. Little. That's our minute there.
Very happy. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Next up, we have Kevin Maxwell.
Thanks so much, Wayne. You know, Scottsdale's been my home for 30 years. I came here in my early 20s for a spring training game. I never went home. I called and said, send my stuff. I want to ensure our city is led by people who listen to citizens and believe in transparent dialogue. With the significant downturn in the economy on the horizon, it's important that Scottsdale City Council is populated with candidates who are able to process complicated financial and economic information. I'm an analyst by trade. I'm also an active listener. I regularly take financial data and come up with a data-driven solution to sophisticated financial problems. And that's precisely what we need on City Council right now. I love Scottsdale and I want to see it thrive for many years to come. I want to see a prosperous community where jobs are abundant and taxes are low. I want our residents to enjoy the many amenities Scottsdale has to offer, like our open spaces, preserve, and greenbelt. I'm uniquely qualified to ensure that vision becomes a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. And lastly, we have Councilman Guy Phillips.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm Councilman Guy Phillips. Ran 2 terms. I'm currently running for my 3rd and final term. I'm actually the only incumbent in the race. I grew up in Phoenix, moved to Scottsdale 25, 30 years ago. I own my own AC business. I was a past realtor and home builder. I have a wife and 5 children. My hobbies include rebuilding muscle cars. And what I want you to know is that I will continue to stand up for public safety as it is our #1 priority. And I will continue to support our small business, tourism, and responsible growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, now we'll move on to our question and answer portion. So just as a reminder, you'll have 30 seconds. And if any of you watch the mayoral forum, those 30 seconds do go quickly. So try and make the most of them. And with our first question, I'm going to touch on a topic that is obviously top of mind for just about every Scottsdale resident right now, and that is the events that occurred around Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall in the downtown area over the weekend. There's been quite a bit of mixed reaction, much of it critical to the police department's response. So the simple question I'm going to pose to you, not so simple, is what would you like to have seen done in that situation? We'll start in reverse order, so I will go first with Councilman Phillips.
Again, thank you, Wayne. You know, what I would like done and what the police did, obviously are 2 different things, but I'm not going to second guess the police. They have a lot more experience and knowledge than I do. That being said, I think we have a responsibility to our businesses. They have to understand that we are there to protect them and their business. And we can't have the attitude of, we're going to go ahead and let them destroy everything as long as nobody gets hurt. So I've actually called on the council to go back over our rules and policies and change
Okay,
them.
thank you, Councilman. That's our 30 seconds. Mr. Maxwell, you're up.
Thank you, Wayne. First of all, what we saw on TV on Saturday night can never happen again. We never want to see civil unrest in Scottsdale. I do believe saying that, however, that police did act appropriately. They called for additional resources. They sectioned off the community where they needed to, and luckily nothing spilled over to the neighboring community. And thank goodness nobody had lost their lives, especially police officers. I think there's some lessons to be learned here. We could take a look at this first-time event and see how it reacted, but I think our police officers did a wonderful job.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Next up, Mr. Little.
Yes, I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback our police department. I supervise them for many years. I have incredible confidence in them. What I am going to do is look forward and propose that this group that we can all see on our screen right now join on Flag Day on June 14th and walk in solidarity for peace and justice from the Solari Bridge all the way to the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, where the Scottsdale Center of the Arts has agreed to help us celebrate the day in celebration of peace and justice in Scottsdale. Thank you. I invite all of us to join together.
Thank you, Mr. Little. That's our 30 seconds. Next up, Ms. Linig.
I make no mistakes. Those were not peaceful protests. We all know that. And I think that the police department acted appropriately for the resources that they have. Also, I think that we need to focus on the fact that our community members came out in droves to help clean up. And, you know, there is power in the people that live here. I don't believe those people were residents of Scottsdale.
Thank you. Ms. Janik, it's your turn. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, I pretty much agree with everything that has been said so far. I believe the police did a very good job and that we had no physical harm to anybody in the altercation. Thank goodness. What would we be saying if a policeman had been seriously injured or even killed because there was more violence? What I do think we need to do is look back at the situation and figure out what we did right and what we can improve on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Durham, you're up.
So the one thing that concerns me most about Saturday night was that since then, the mayor has been missing in action, and we really haven't heard from him what instructions he gave to the police. I'm not an expert in policing, but I have questions such as were the police told to stand down or were they simply outmanned? I think that there ought to be some review of what happened so that we can learn what went wrong, what went right.
Thank you, Mr. Durham.
Better the next.
That's our 30 seconds. Mr. Crawford, your turn.
There's a lot of questions at the present time as to how this was handled. There are members of the community, including myself, that had intelligence that this was on the way and it was a big deal and it was to be taken seriously. So there's serious questions out there as to why this wasn't addressed properly. So I'm going to say that we should have an independent study of our department from the top to the bottom. Those guys are good. They're well trained. They were capable of dealing with this threat. Why did they have their hands tied? Why did they stand down?
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Next up, Ms. Caputi.
I support the City of Scottsdale Police's measured response to this situation. We certainly could never condone looting. I also want to point out that the City of Scottsdale is a golden rule city. We're open to business from everyone. We can certainly do better. But again, the City of Scottsdale Police did as good of a job as they could. We always need to make sure that they have appropriate resources and training to deal with situations like this. But there was no loss of life. And I think at the end of the day, it worked out okay for everybody.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Auerbach.
What we witnessed was disgusting. And if you elect me as your city councilman, not on my watch. The instigator was from Southern California, who came here and organized that riot. And make no mistake, it was a riot, not a protest. If my individual freedoms are threatened today, yours may be threatened tomorrow. And I will do everything I can to ensure that the National Guard, the governor, and any other law enforcement agency.
Thank you, Mr. Auerbach. That's our 30 seconds. All right, we'll move on to our next question. We're going to get into some of the other policy issues that we're looking at. As you all know, the city is in the process of developing a new general plan. Should the city's new general plan differ significantly from the current plan, which was approved by voters nearly 20 years ago? We'll start out with Ms. Janik.
Thank you. Well, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. As far as the general plan goes, there's two versions of it. There's the one that's in existence, and then there's the one from 2016 that quite a few of our citizens spent hundreds of hours developing that never saw the light of day. I think we need to be careful to make sure that we address the needs of the citizens, not just those on the committee that are adjusting for a new general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, Mr. Durham.
I'm concerned about the way the general plan is going because the Citizen Review Committee mostly consists of heads of committees and commissions and isn't giving enough input from the citizens. Two things I'd like to see in the new general plan are elements for education and also elements for healthcare, because I'd like a better explanation of the assets that we have in those two areas so that we can plan.
That's our limit. Mr. Crawford.
Long-term planning, long-term budgets, they're great, but I got news for you. We woke up in a different world a couple of months ago, and nothing is ever going to be the same. So what we need to bring our economy back, because without our economy and our sales tax, nothing's possible. We've got to have people on the ground that can think fast, respond to the changes in our world, and know how to conduct business.
Thank you. Ms. Caputi.
I think the general plan, we need to remember, is an aspirational document that needs to reflect the needs and desires and aspirations of our current population, which is why we need an update. It's important that we loop everyone in. Everyone needs to have a voice. And I think this time around, we need to really remember that Scottsdale's winning formula requires that we have high amenities, strong property values, and low property taxes. And that means that we need to balance our open spaces with our economic drivers. The general plan also should include some information and aspirations about education.
That's our 30 seconds.
Wow, was that fast?
I know. Mr. Auerbach, you're up next.
Scottsdale needs a leader with the discernment to know how and where to grow and where not to. I will be an advocate committed to protecting our open spaces and signature events. And Scottsdale needs a voice who will protect the values of individual liberty and freedom from municipal government overreach.
Thank you. And Ms. Linnick.
Thank you. I think that the general plan, quite honestly, needs to be scrapped, and we need to start from scratch. Our community and our city has changed so drastically since the beginning of the last approval for that general plan. I would like a total overhaul.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
Yes, this is a transformative time right now. Every element of the general plan needs to be re-examined. Transportation will change, housing will change. As Tom mentioned, thank you very much. I proposed a education element be added to the general plan. Top to bottom, re-overhaul of the general plan is what I'm in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you so much, Wayne. What I'd like to see is the leverage, the collaboration of community during last fall's bond election. The PAC committee did an excellent job of getting the ball over the finish line. And by golly, when this city decides it wants to get something done, it gets something done. I want to see real citizens' participation. I want them to know that we're listening to them. And I want every citizen to know their ideas are heard and their ideas are valued.
Thank you. And Councilman Phillips, take it home.
Thank you. I've been working with the general plan for easily the last 10 years, and the major issue is tightening our land use designation. As Scottsdale approaches build out, I think that is critical to plan responsibly so we don't get overcrowded.
Thank you. All right, our next question will focus on I guess, a more short-term issue that could bleed into the long term as well. The question is, what are your solutions to help the city recover from the COVID-19 economic downturn? And we'll start out with Ms. Linnick.
Thank you. This is very different than what we saw in 9/11 and what we saw with the recession. We've already started to see recovery. We've had an excellent forward leader in Experience Scottsdale, and we've already seen the numbers start to increase as far as the economic recovery. I did speak with the owner of Vacasa, who is a short-term rental company, who said they had the highest booking in their company's history 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. Mr. Little, you're up.
Yes, for our recovery, I think it's absolutely paramount for us to address the disease element that we're looking at, COVID. It's going to be a long road, and we're going to need to rebuild our economy. One of the ways we do that is become America's healthiest city and rebuild and capitalize on our tourism and rebuild our city on the basis of our existing strength, which is tourism, and diversify our economy as we go along.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Wayne. Well, as I said earlier, I'm a researcher. I've reviewed studies from ASU, U of A, and other national economic journals. And what everyone agrees is that this recession will be deep, but it'll be short, 12 to 18 months as compared to 3 to 5 years. We should do a careful review of our budget, remove all discretionary expenses to allow us maximum flexibility, and do what we can to promote private investment and create jobs in this economy.
Good. Thank you. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you, Wayne. Well, tourism is the one that gave us the funds to get through this crisis, and I believe tourism is the one that will get us back on track. Arizona is one of the first states in the country to open for business. People want to come here, even in the heat. You know, the temperature can probably kill more virus germs than anywhere else. So I believe tourism will lead us to a road of recovery.
Thank you. Mr. Auerbach.
The hospitality industry, travel and tourism has been the hardest hit, and the city manager and the city treasurer put out a budget in May. We just received, as of this morning, $26.9 million from the governor. The projected shortfall was 23 million. That actual shortfall will be 38 million. So I am in the industry and I understand tourism, and I can help get us back.
Thank you. Ms. Caputi.
In the short term, I think just like in my own business, the city needs to do exactly what they've been doing. Take a look at the line items of the budget, decide what absolutely has to be there, jettison whatever doesn't have to be, and then prepare to start pivoting into directions in which we can start keeping business more. We have to keep business robust in different areas as tourism goes down. We have, I'm probably out of time.
Yeah, a few seconds. All right, thank you. Mr. Crawford.
TSA check-ins are about 10% of what they normally are. Rachel Sacco has identified the fact that population centers within driving distance, people are coming here to enjoy our tourism. They're skipping over Las Vegas, they're coming here. So we need to encourage that. We need to get behind her, give her the resources that she needs. And we need to encourage and help our small business community open up as soon as possible, get out of their way. They know what they are doing.
All right, thank you, sir. And Mr. Durham.
Well, there were some hiccups early on, but I think since then, I think the city council has done a good job of taking a hard look at the budget and slicing where it needs to be sliced and can be sliced. I agree with a lot of the others here. I think tourism is going to lead the way. Our mountains, the sunshine, open skies, the golf courses are not going anywhere. And I think when this is all over, people are going to be looking for a break, and they're not going to be flying to Europe, and they're not going to be flying to New York City.
That's our 30 seconds. And lastly, Ms. Janik.
I agree a lot with what Tom said concerning tourism and the environment we have here. And several weeks ago, I had written to City Council and I suggested that they expand the restaurant space in Old Town Scottsdale onto the streets and sidewalks so that when we social distance, we still had tables so that the restaurateurs could take care of a better population, more people at their restaurants. That has been adopted and I think it's gone well. I also agree that we need to take
that's our limit.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next question, talking about the campaign themselves. Do you pledge that you will disclose all contributions made over the course of your campaign and will not accept any contributions or payments from anonymous sources? We will start with Ms. Caputi.
Of course. Campaign contributions are legal, constitutional, and fully disclosed, and that's the way they should be. We should never confuse campaign contributions with secret donations of any sort. Everything needs to be transparent and above board, and of course, I would report by law and by our ethics code every political contribution.
Thank you. Mr. Durham.
Of course, I won't be taking anonymous contributions, but I think the real issue here is that candidates and council members and mayoral candidates who are taking contributions from people who have business before the city. Our ethics code requires the highest standards of ethics, and I think it's unethical. I think it creates a conflict of interest to take money from people who have business before the city, because then you can't honestly review their projects.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. And next up, we have Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Wayne. Yeah, absolutely. I think our system does offer full disclosure, and I will take no anonymous donors ever. Our campaign finance report is open for everyone to see, so you can see who's contributing. I also believe that all funding mechanisms should be transparent and honest, and council members should always act with the utmost integrity, which I think they do.
Thank you. Mr. Auerbach.
I pledge to follow all campaign finance laws, as I always have and always will. And the Supreme Court decided the Citizens United case. And as a law-abiding citizen, I follow all laws. If the state or the council decides to change those laws, I will comply with all finance laws and ethics policies.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. Of course, nobody's going to take money from any unauthorized or undisclosed source. And at the same time, nobody should take money from anybody that's going to be coming for the council now or in the future. And of course, you know that I've said that out loud. I've said that if I have anybody coming for council that took contributions, I will return them. And I hope that everybody else will do the same.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
It's not legal to take contributions from anonymous sources. This is pretty much spelled out in law. And to try to exclude developers from contributing, that'd be like trying to exclude every citizen in Scottsdale who also comes before the council for many different issues. So to try to convolute this legitimate fundraising together with some shenanigans that have recently taken place is wrong. Also, don't create a barrier for underfinanced candidates for people that are running that have their own pile of wealth. That's just not going to pass the test.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Ms. Janik. Oh, you're on mute.
Of course, all the campaign donations need to be disclosed to be in compliance with the law. And I think everybody here is well aware that that's the rule and they'll follow it. My big concerns are when donations are made to certain individuals and they're on sitting council and then they vote in favor of certain developments knowing that they have received substantial donations from them. I feel that it would be best if they recuse themselves or return the donations that they received so that the ethical value could be maintained. And that's what I think the citizens expect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
This is simple. Disclosure is good. Secrets are bad. It's inexcusable to accept anonymous donations or gifts from any source in any amount. It's that simple. I may be the only candidate here that's actually returned money to a citizen who wanted to give me money and thought I would agree with them. I said, you can't buy my vote. It's illegal and it's inappropriate. And I don't approve of it in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linick.
I don't think anyone in a position of leadership should be accepting anonymous gifts. And I think the code should reflect full transparency of any gifts, cash or otherwise, that you receive.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna break up the monotony a little bit and do what we're calling a lightning round. So these are basically yes or no questions, and all I want from you is a yes or a no or a support, did not support, based on what the question is, just real quick. So we're not really going with the 30 seconds on these ones. I'm just going to go back and forth through the list and with a question, and I want a yes or a no. So here we go. The first question I have is, did you vote yes on Proposition 420? Mr. Maxwell?
No, I did not.
All right, Mr. Durham?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes, but it didn't go far enough. They can still sell off pieces
All right,
of preserve.
we're just going yes or no. Councilman Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Auerbach?
Yes, I oppose the DDC.
Ms. Linick?
No.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Ms. Janik?
I oppose the DDC.
Ms. Caputi?
I opposed it as well.
Thank you. Next one. Despite the council's ultimate decision to pull the project, did you support putting Southbridge 2 before a citizen vote? We'll start in reverse. Ms. Caputi.
I'm sorry. Can you just?
I'm sorry. I'll rephrase it. Yeah. Did you support bringing Southbridge 2 before a vote?
Absolutely not.
Ms. Janik.
Yes, I think the citizens wanted to have their voices heard.
We just need the yes or the no. Mr. Little.
No, bad application of initiative and referendum.
Ms. Linick. Sorry, I didn't. Ms. Linick.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
My-
Yes, once the petition was filed, I think the citizens needed their
Okay.
vote.
We just need the yes or no, guys. Mr. Auerbach.
Yes, I supported it.
Councilman Phillips.
Emphatic yes.
Mr. Crawford.
No, it was a political stunt.
Mr. Durham.
Yes.
And Mr. Maxwell.
The way you asked the question, yes.
And let's see what I have next. Branch out some other issues here. because it could be a statewide issue going on the same ballot that you all may be appearing on, do you support the legalization of recreational marijuana? Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Durham?
No.
Mr. Crawford?
It's coming.
Councilman Phillips?
No.
Mr. Auerbach?
Absolutely not.
Ms. Linnick?
We're not there yet.
Mr. Little?
Oh, I think the citizens have spoken. Yes.
Ms. Janik?
No.
And Ms. Caputi?
Yes.
Okay. And my last lightning round question for you is, did you support or oppose the most recent budget override for the school district that you live in? Ms. Caputi?
Yes, I supported.
Ms. Janik?
Yes, definitely.
Mr. Little?
Yes.
Ms. Linnick?
Yes, 1,000%.
Mr. Auerbach?
I opposed.
Councilman Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Durham?
Yes.
And Mr. Maxwell?
I worked on the campaign. Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for indulging us in that. We just wanted to break it up a little bit and provide our viewers with a little bit of a different look. So we'll go back to our longer form questions now in our 30-second format. So the question I have this time around is, do you support the vision that was laid out by the Old Town Scottsdale Character Area Plan that was approved by the City Council in 2018? That includes an allowance for 150-foot buildings in select areas if bonuses are met tied to public benefit. So I will start with Mr. Little.
Yes, I support the character area plan. I think it did a good job. If it were up to me, I'd put a wall right around Old Town. That means the real Old Town, Indian School to Second, and from Brown Avenue to Scottsdale Road. That shouldn't be changed. The rest of downtown, we can have additional building height there as the city council approved. And I support that. And I think it's a really good character area plan. We just need to abide by it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Caputi.
Yes, I support the character area plans. As a member of the DRB, I most definitely supported them. The Old Town area absolutely needs to be thriving and walkable. It's going to be a year-round venue. It is a huge economic driver for our city, and we need to make sure that we make it as vital as possible. It's got to be there to generate our high quality of life and our low property taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell.
Yeah, I do support the character plan as well. I think that our city is very long, 21 miles, and I think there's different areas, and each city, each part of our city is unique and needs to be represented that way. So yes, I support that each neighborhood be able to develop what's consistent for them. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And Ms. Janik.
I want to make sure I understand what the question was.
Sure.
To me, the question was, do I support the vote that allows 150-foot tall buildings in our downtown core? Do I allow them to do away with setbacks? The answer is no. I think it was a very poor decision. I think most of the citizens object to it. I think we need to respect what's there. Yes, it needs an uplift, but it doesn't need a 150-foot uplift. So I'm very much against that.
Thank you. Ms. Linnick.
As one of our historic tour guides, it's always fun to look back at the dirt streets and the wagons that we used to ride. Unfortunately, that's not us anymore. And we need to make sure that we're honoring our history, but also building for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Auerbach.
Yes, as the only candidate, yes, as the only candidate who lives just outside of Old Town, I do agree with it. There are places a 15-story building belongs, and there are places that it does not. And Scottsdale has to appeal to all generations, millennials and older folks and seniors, to attract the kind of tax dollars that we need to fund the general fund to keep up our award-winning parks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Durham.
Well, I supported the plan in general, but both the Marquee and the South Bridge failed to comply with the urban design and architectural guidelines. which require compact floor plates. So they don't want big, broad, massive buildings like Southbridge 2 and Marquee. I would be fine with taller buildings that were slim and compact and did not break up our views of the canal and of the mountains.
Thank you, Ms. Durham. That we've hit our 30 seconds there. Councilman Phillips.
Yes, I supported the downtown character area plan, but because we allow that doesn't mean they get it. And the point was being, they have to come to council and they have to show a public benefit equal to the project's request. In the view of Marquee and Southbridge, I don't think they had that. As far as Museum Square, I think he did.
Thank you. And Mr. Crawford.
I did definitely support it. And what perplexes me is there were people that worked on it, supported it, voted for it. But then when the winds of political change made it fashionable for them to oppose projects, they opposed projects that fit within the guidelines, destroying a 20-year dream, destroying the future of Scottsdale. So for those kind of projects, I'm 110% for them, and I'll do everything I can to work towards Scottsdale's bright future for not just us, but also our children and people who are coming here to gain employment and live our dream. Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to our next question. What, if any, financial support should the city provide to local businesses that were first impacted by the COVID-19 economic downturn and then the more recent riot downtown and the subsequent curfew? So we'll start off with Mr. Durham.
Well, the city is in a hard position of its own. So I really don't think that the city is in a position to hand out money. What I'd like to see is loosening of regulations, help and administrative help in loosening regulations, making it easier to come back, and helping to make sure that the businesses which need help know where to go in the city to receive the help that they need.
Thank you. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you so much. You know, if the federal government actually was able to give the local municipalities some money, then absolutely I'd support that, having a fund to help our small businesses. I was able to organize a forum where I was able to bring some restaurant owners together to talk about getting them the resources. So I tried to pull some restaurant and bar owners together to do just that. And it was a little bit successful. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll go with Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. So, yeah, with the money that the city got, our council will be reviewing that and seeing if there's any money that we can use to maybe support grants for our small businesses, maybe help them with their utilities, maybe loosen regulations, whatever we can do to help them. We have to remember that they were the ones that built our city, and we owe it to them to help them out during this time.
Thank you. Ms. Janik.
I support what the city has done with the help they have provided through different avenues so that the local businessmen can get the information they need to get the funds they need at the federal level. I know we have a tight budget, but I do think that we need to review that budget. And if there are funds available, they should be used to help the local businesses most in need. It's a vibrant part of our economy and a vibrant part of our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linick.
So the CARES Act just injected almost $30 million into Scottsdale, and it's specifically designated to go back to local businesses and not to pad the coffers of the city. And so I definitely believe that there needs to be a grant program to give back to those businesses that need it.
Thank you. Ms. Caputi.
I don't know how much the city can do with the limited resources that it has. Of course, we should take advantage of federal programs that are out there, but this is the perfect opportunity to make the argument that we need to be more economically diversified. We need economic vitality. We can't be so dependent as a city in these areas in which we become vulnerable during economic recessions and times like this. If we concentrate on our high tech, our biotech, and our higher ed industries. That way we're not going to suffer so much during downturns and we won't be in.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Auerbach.
The Payment Protection Program, the PPP, has helped some small businesses, but not enough. The city of Scottsdale has, and through the financial downturn and up until now, has a AAA credit rating. No other major city or very few can make that claim. And we are in a very good interest rate position. The Treasury Secretary and the Small Business Administration have municipal bond and loan programs that the city, if you elect me, I will make sure we get those funds to help these small restaurateurs.
We've reached our 30 seconds there, Mr. Auerbach. Mr. Little.
Yes, I think it's great that we give money to private business to help them through this crisis. But I'll tell you what they really need is personal assistance and boots on the ground. When I was executive director of downtown Scottsdale for many years, our office housed landscape crews. We housed the police department. We also even have a police substation in Fashion Square. People need support, person to person, and that's what really helps small business. And I've been a small business person for 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
The number one responsibility of any municipality is public safety. And we're looking at budgets, and some people are talking about cutting the money for public safety. So I don't think we're in a position to loan money to people in the private sector. What we can do is everything that we can to support their pathway to success, cut regulations, make it easier for them to open their businesses back up, keep their businesses back up, and work with promoting our economy, our businesses, and bringing people in here to spend money. And we do that by keeping Scottsdale safe and keeping it clean.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on to our next question. The city of Scottsdale has a $1.5 billion budget. Why are you qualified to be one of the 7 people responsible for approving that budget every year? So we'll flip it back. Mr. Crawford.
Well, I've worked with budgets in big businesses and small businesses for 42 years. I've had the same corporation in business in downtown Scottsdale for 22 years. And I have survived the recession of 2008. I survived the recent problem we had with the shutdown. And just the general ups and downs of businesses makes me quite familiar with spreadsheets, profit and loss, payables, receivables.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Ms. Linnig.
I've been a successful business owner for over 14 years. And as the past president of Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors, I engaged in several budget cycles with them. When faced with a crisis like 9/11, the recession, and COVID, it's better to rip the Band-Aid off, make hard choices, mitigate damages, and begin the recovery process.
Thank you. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. Well, I've had my own business for over 20 years. I had to do payroll, I've had to do hiring and firing, had to do inventory, maintain the shop, all that. Aside from that, I've been on the council for almost 8 years now. And being on the council, you work with all the city agencies and departments, and you get a better understanding of how the city is run and how complicated these budgets are for each department. And so you need that experience. You need experience from somebody.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Janik. You switched yourself to mute, I think. Hey.
I have run medical practice businesses. I have been the treasurer of numerous organizations, from small ones to big ones. I have been the treasurer of the Protect Our Preserve organization. I was treasurer of the largest swim team in Colorado. So I know how budgets work. I also know how to save money and how to make ends meet. So I feel that, and I'm also pretty good in math. So I feel like I have the ability to look at a budget and make it balanced and know where cuts should be made and where they shouldn't be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janik. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you so much. Well, as I said earlier, I am an analyst. Just this morning before 9 o'clock, I was on 2 conference calls with business units talking about their multi-million-dollar budgets. I was helping them with forecasting and modeling to help them predict what they're going to spend the next 12 to 18 months. So I think I'm uniquely qualified to be able to help with budgets.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Auerbach.
Successful businesses are run by good leadership. And good leadership is based on relationships. And the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry is all about relationships. If you elect me, I pledge to bring a new signature art event to Scottsdale, and it will be something that will go on and last for decades.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Little.
I think the one thing that distinguishes me from my colleagues here is the fact that I've actually done it. I was the city manager, the CEO of a $1.5 billion budget. I managed 2,600 employees and the police and fire and emergency services. In 2009, in the Great Recession, I also helped successfully navigate a $65 million deficit and got us out of the hole. So I'm uniquely qualified in that respect. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Durham.
I was a tax lawyer for 35 years. So I studied the finances of places from the government of Brazil to the leading computer companies to candy companies, municipal stadiums, and many other subjects. And I have worked with some of the leading economists in the US as expert witnesses in trials. And I'm also on the Financial Affairs Committee of my college, where I'm on the board of trustees. And if there's anybody having a tougher time,
Thank you, Mr. Durham. That's our limit.
College.
And Ms. Caputi.
I have a bachelor's in economics and a master's in business administration. I've spent the last 20 years successfully running my own business, dealing with projects of the size and scope that come before the city council. I work in an industry that experiences regular cyclical downturns, and I understand the need to pivot to new opportunities and stay diversified.
Thank you. Well, I want to throw in one more lightning round question since we're all moving along pretty swiftly here. Everyone's sticking by the rules, and I want to thank you for that. So y'all know the format, the lightning round. Question this time is: did you vote in favor of the most recent bond package? And obviously, if you voted yes on one, no on another, you can indicate that. So let's start with Councilman Phillips.
Of course, yes.
And Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, I did. And again, I helped to support it. Yes.
Mr. John Little.
Yes, absolutely. Enthusiastically.
Ms. Lenig.
Yes, I was on the PAC committee.
Ms. Janik.
Yes, I was on the PAC committee as well.
Mr. Durham.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford.
Absolutely.
Ms. Caputi.
Yes, perfect example of collaboration.
And Mr. Auerbach.
No, because the citizens were not heard from.
All right. Thank you all for indulging me in that one more time. All right, now I'm going to go to a little bit more general question, give you a little bit more freedom to kind of show what's important to you, to all of our viewers right now. So the question is, in your view, what is the most important issue facing the city right now, and what do you plan to do about it? So, Mr. Auerbach, we'll start with you.
The most important issue confronting the city is the lack of sales tax revenue generated from bed tax and mom and pop restaurants and the TPT. And that shortfall, as I mentioned, is going to be at least $38 million. And we need to have someone who has the relationships and the leadership to connect and bring those dollars and those jobs back and help support those small business operators.
Yes, sir. Ms. Janik.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we have is recovering from COVID-19 pandemic. I think we're in pretty good shape as far as healthcare goes and taking care of our needy citizens. But I agree, I think we really are going to need to work on the budget, try to enhance tourism, try to enhance business, to get people to come back here, spend money, so that we can proceed as Scottsdale is used to proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lenig.
Honestly, I feel like the fractured state of council and the residents of our city is the biggest issue. If we can't agree on any forward movement, then that will stymie everything that happens in council and what decisions we have to make. So we need to look at unity and how we can get some collaboration.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
My wife Debbie and I have lived in downtown Scottsdale for over 22 years, and we intimately know everything that's going on down here. So Mace Rich, who owns Fashion Square, they've been recently hit by a 1-2 punch. Number one, the pandemic closed them down. Number two, the riot. Do you realize that last year they produced $1 billion in retail sales? That's 8% of our sales tax comes from Mace Rich. We got to do everything we can to get these downtown businesses and restaurants opened up as soon as we possibly can. All of the money that comes into Scottsdale.
That's we've hit our 30 seconds. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. Well, obviously, our number one concern is public safety right now. You know, we were blindsided Saturday night. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anger. A lot of businesses downtown have boarded up their shops. I mean, we can't allow that. We have to make sure that everybody in our city can feel safe. That is obviously our number one priority right now.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
Yes, I think there are three things I'd like to highlight as tremendous challenges. One is the general plan update. Some of us are going to be responsible for that. And I promise you that I will not take a general plan to the vote of the people without a 7-0 consensus vote of the city council. The second thing is we need to be prepared. Do you realize we've left $500 million worth of unfunded capital on the table? That has to be, we can't kick that can down the road any further. And complacency is our Achilles heel in Scottsdale. We can't be complacent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maxwell.
As I alluded to during my opening statements, I think our economic situation is absolutely our number one priority. We're going to have some real difficulty with our budget, and city council is going to make some very difficult decisions moving forward. I think the people who are going to be making those decisions need to be adequately trained to make them. So economics is our number one priority moving forward for me.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Caputi.
The economy is our most important issue, of course, right now. We've got to be open for business. If we continue to tell companies looking to locate in Scottsdale to leave, they will. We have to have a robust, diversified economy, and we've got to keep moving forward into the future.
Thank you. And Mr. Durham.
I believe our biggest problem is that there is a lack of trust in the 4-member majority of the city council. I've heard from citizens all across the city, and they can't understand why the 4-person majority on the council votes for every huge development against the will of the citizens, such as the Desert Discovery Center, Marquee, Southbridge 2. And I've spoken to many people who are upset about this and think that the majority.
Thank you, Tom. That's our 30 seconds. All right. Now, the economy obviously played a big role in that question for a lot of you, but we weren't in this downturn when a lot of you decided to run for office. So my next question would be, what issue, what cause, what sparked you to run for office? It's obviously not an easy thing to do. You open yourself up to public criticism. You open yourself up to just a lot. It takes a lot of your time. So reframe the question. Why are you running for office? What was that spark? Let's start with Ms. Linnick.
So collaboration and communication between city council, city departments, and residents is extremely important. We need an efficient government that performs core services at exceptional levels. And also we need to concentrate on protecting property rights and property values for the future of Scottsdale. I've seen countless examples of where more robust communication would have benefited the situation as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Little.
Scottsdale's my family. It's my extended family, all 250,000 of them. My heart and soul is in Scottsdale. I worked for Scottsdale for over 20 years. Everything I've done has been designed to help build this community into the place that we can be proud to hand off as our legacy to our children and grandchildren. And so I couldn't be more proud to serve. I think it's duty and responsibility is at the heart of why I want to run, and also to keep up the historic
Thank you, sir.
high
Thank you, sir.
quality of life. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Maxwell.
Well, like I said earlier, I think I'm also from South Scottsdale, and I think South Scottsdale needs to be represented on councils. Becca mentioned earlier, it's been over 15 years since we've had anybody from South Scottsdale representing our city. Also, I want to say that, again, as I look to city council, we need somebody who's diverse and not focused on this one particular thing that's important to them. Somebody who has an experience.
Thank you. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. Well, I first ran as my civic duty, and I wanted to be able to be a voice for the people. I believe I've done that over the last 8 years. I've always pushed tourism. That's small business, the backbone of our economy. And I want to be able to continue in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Auerbach.
As a former Capitol Hill aide to a United States Senator and a U.S. Congressman, I've been registered to vote since I was 18 years of age, and I am currently a precinct committeeman and am very involved with my community. And good leadership is really needed to steer the council to address the concerns and challenges that we are going to be facing in the next decade.
Thank you. Ms. Caputi.
As I've said, I have 3 children. I want the future to be better for them than it is for me. Scottsdale is a fantastic place to live. We have a winning formula. It's high amenities, strong property values, and low property taxes. We have to balance our open spaces with our economic drivers, and we need to be a place where our children can go to school and get a good job without leaving our city.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
My sense of community service is very strong. I have participated with many positive things over many years. I've gotten a lot done. I have a track record for getting things done. And the people that are supporting me know that, they understand that, and they say, hey, Bill, if you can get this much done as a private citizen off the council, we want you on that council so you can get even more done.
Thank you. Mr. Durham. No, you're on mute there, Tom.
Scottsdale is a wonderful city, and like my friend John, I feel a duty to pitch in and help. It's a great place. I want to be able to make sure that it grows, but as it grows, I want to make sure that we enhance and preserve the wonderful reputation that Scottsdale has and the amazing character. There's no place else in the United States like this, and I want to preserve that character.
Thank you. And lastly, Ms. Janik.
Yeah, since I was a freshman in high school, I have been involved in commitment to community. And when I was serving as president of the Coalition of Greater Scottsdale, I got copies of the Zoning and Planning Commission calendars. And back in October, I saw an inordinate number of zoning requests to increase the density of certain areas of the city. And I said, you know, I don't think the citizens like this, and there's only one way to change it, and that's to become a member of city council. So that was why I decided that I wanted to be part of city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Janik. All right, we touched on the relationship between the city and local schools in our lightning round earlier, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about it a little bit more. Do you support a stronger relationship between the city council and local school districts? And if so, how would you accomplish that? So let's start with, flip it back. Let's start with Ms. Janik. Oh, you're on mute there.
There we go. Okay, as a former teacher for 20, 30 years and the mother of 3 very successful children, I totally support public school education. I think that we need to put elements in the general plan that address unifying the city with the school, because without a strong school system, you don't have the strongest city you possibly could have. So I would say that, again, we need to address some of these issues in our general plan. We need to talk about shared facilities, perhaps libraries, and
Thank you.
perhaps science labs.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Mr. Arbach.
Well, with all due respect, this is a city council race. There is a concurrent right now SUSD board race, and several of my opponents talk a lot about education. Well, they may be in the wrong race and may want to reconsider running for school board. City council has to deal with public safety, finances, education, and all other business operations and permitting of the city.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Linnick.
Wayne, I've been a Scottsdale Unified School District parent for over 20 years, and I have an incoming freshman this year. I do believe that we can invite the education, the SUSD, to have a seat at the table and create better communication. But however, I agree this is not a city council issue.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
There's a lot that a strong municipality like Scottsdale can do to help the schools within our boundaries. They're in our property, they're on our streets. This makes it a little difficult because there's 3 different municipalities that straddle our school district: Paradise Valley, Phoenix, and Scottsdale. So you can't do everything for all, but the schools that are within our boundaries, we can certainly do a lot to help, because we're going to get better citizens for the city of Scottsdale if we do everything we can to help our school district. That's elementary.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Councilman Phillips.
Thank you. Well, the city already has a lot of IGAs with the schools. We work together all the time. I think what this question is really about is financial support. And as far as that's concerned, it should be, these are 2 separate entities. School board gets their funds from one place and the city gets their funds from another. And I don't think those should be commingled.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Little. You're still on mute there.
I don't think there's anything really more important than our relationship and partnership with the school district. 15 years ago, Which Way Scottsdale, a Morrison Institute report, identified education and the inequality around education as a very vulnerable thing for a sustainable economy in Scottsdale. So I proposed almost a year ago now to have a general plan incorporate an education element. And I'm glad to hear that it's getting some traction. I'm really excited about it, and thank everyone for their support.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Maxwell.
Well, the real public servant in this family, the Maxwell family, is not me. It's my wife, Bronwyn, who's been a 25-year special needs teacher for SUSD. She's absolutely outstanding and award-winning teacher. If you look at my social media feed, you'll see that I'm constantly shining a light on Scottsdale Unified School District and the achievements they have. So I'm absolutely in support of them. And if you look at the Scottsdale Education Association website, I have a statement they're saying so.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Caputi.
I think the only thing preventing the city and the schools from having better collaboration is our own limited imagination. Young families and businesses, of course, consider the quality of schools when they think about relocating to our city. We need to have collaboration between our city leaders, our schools, and we should even be partnering with SCC to provide better services for our residents and increase and improve our quality of life for everyone who lives here.
Thank you. And Mr. Durham.
I'm a coach of a mock trial team at a local high school, and I spend hundreds of hours every year coaching high school kids on mock trial tactics. And my team almost made it to the state finals this year. So I'm really proud of working with high schools on that. I agree with John that our general plan needs an education element. There's a limited amount we can do to directly affect the Scottsdale schools.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. All right, that wraps up our question portion. I want to thank you all for your answers and for sticking with me. I know it's getting all that information into 30 seconds. It's always going to leave something to be desired. So I appreciate you guys working within the format. So we are going to move on now to our closing statements. Remember, these will be 1 minute, and we'll be doing it in the reverse order of the opening statements. So that means we will start with Councilman Phillips.
Thank you, Wayne. Well, like I said earlier, I've been on the council for 8 years. I'd like to continue working for you. I'd like to continue helping our residents and our neighbors. We have a lot of issues to work through, but obviously right now, our most important issue is public safety. And the residents and families, your homes, your businesses, we all have to feel safe in Scottsdale. If we don't feel safe, nobody's going to come here. And we have to make that our #1 priority at this time. So I'm working with the city to try to change that policy because I don't want our downtown boarded up. They need to be able to go for business, and they need to be able to understand that we will back them. So vote for Guy Phillips for Scottsdale City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up will be Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I have a long history of service to Scottsdale. I lived in the north part of the community, and I lived in the south part of the community. I served as chair of the Airport Advisory Commission. I'm a graduate of Scottsdale Leadership Class 29. I served on the board of Scottsdale Leadership for 3 years. I worked on the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, and I've served in advisory capacity for the Scottsdale Coalition of Today and Tomorrow. Most recently, I joined the board of Family Promise, Scottsdale's only resource for homelessness. If elected, I'll work my tail off for transparency and collaboration with citizens. I will strive for the utmost in ethical behavior and transparency. I will never violate my trust of the citizens. Visit my website at maxwellforscottsdale.com for all my ideas that are innovative, actionable, accountable, including my plan to reduce airport noise coming out of Scottsdale Airport. My name is Kevin Maxwell. I value your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Next up, we have Mr. Little.
Yes, Wayne, I'm going to give up this me minute and talk about a we minute. People know me. I'm a bicyclist like Tom. I know Becca. I know almost and Tammy, and I know almost everybody on this panel. And I respect all of you. But this is a time when we have an opportunity to show some unity in our community. We shouldn't let it pass us by. I really am serious. No speeches, no signs, no brochures, no campaigning. Could we walk together in unity to demonstrate and show goodwill to this community, our commitment to peace and unity and justice, because we don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. And if we're not a unified community, we've got nothing. So thank you. I encourage you all, June 14th, please, a little walk, an hour of your time. Let's all do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Ms. Linick.
This is a very important election year since we're filling 4 seats in our 7-person local government. So over half the council will be new. It could result in a cosmic shift in the way that we see Scottsdale. I keep hearing people say Scottsdale will always be special, and I cringe every time I hear it, because how many people were shocked at the rioting events that occurred this past weekend and thought that would never happen in Scottsdale? Oftentimes we have a small town mentality, but we have a big city population. So we need to realize that the future is constantly changing, and we need to do the best we can to sway with the wind or we'll break. I've demonstrated a flawless commitment to serve. I'm a good listener and I'm pragmatic, and I'll be the voice that we haven't had for so many years in South Scottsdale. Leaders practice respect for others and responsibility for all their actions. I am that leader. Find videos, photos, how to invest, and more important information about my campaign at www.beccaforscottsdale.com. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Ms. Janik.
Yes, I believe it's time for a vision and a voice. I will listen to the residents and I will be responsive to the citizens first. I will seek approval of a general plan that is supported by the residents and meets their needs. Next, I will enhance our quality of life with thoughtful growth, form strong partnerships with residents, businessmen, and council to achieve best outcomes, follow existing zoning, minimize variances, and maintain uniformity of our neighborhoods. Recognize tourism as the key to financial stability while still strengthening and growing sectors of healthcare, technology, and retail. Finally, I believe we need to show fiscal responsibility, especially with what's happened to our tax revenue and to our city more recently. I would balance the budget and use bonds for special projects, not routine expenses. I would approve projects where all costs are disclosed, including maintenance and infrastructure, and covered by the new income. With an eye to the future and respect for the past, I ask for your vote. Go to votejanik.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Janik. Mr. Durham.
For everyone listening, I'd like to let them know that the citizens of Greater Scottsdale has endorsed Guy and Betty and myself. And I think that's a signal that we will be the best representatives of the citizens of Scottsdale. In 2013, my wife and I came to Scottsdale for a college board meeting. We were here for only 4 days, but we loved it so much that we decided to stay. We love the open skies, the open spaces, the high design standards, and the zoning, which protects our unique character. If I'm elected to the city council, I will work hard to preserve and enhance Scottsdale's unique character. And with Betty, I think that we need to attract more high-tech industries, more medical industries, and other industries which will support high-paying jobs, and will do it while minimizing impacts on our infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. All right, Mr. Crawford.
Let's talk about something important and relative. Scottsdale is a city of law and order. There is not one single person in this town that does not want justice for Mr. Floyd. We need that. We are a city of diversity. Everyone is welcome in this community. We also support protests. I'm sure all of us at one point in time have been involved in peaceful protest. But I got to tell you, we will not accept violence. We will not accept looting. We will not accept vandalism, and it will never happen again. And if I'm elected, you can make sure it won't happen again. So there's 38,000 people that voted for me in the last election. If you just give me that vote one more time, that's enough for me to get elected. It was enough last time, but there were certain circumstances that prevented it. Give me that vote one more time. You can't find a better leader for the current conditions that we face in Scottsdale.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Tammy Caputi.
I'm Tammy Caputi, and I'm running for city council because we need leaders with aptitude, experience, and vision to help rebuild our local economy. We should not have our minds made up ahead of time like several of my challengers do. Council members are elected to exercise their good judgment. As a 3-year member of our Development Review Board, I have a track record of doing this. I've built my own successful business, providing electrical supplies that bring light to our hospitals and roadways, our airports and ballparks. I work in an industry that experiences regular downturns, and I know how to pivot to new opportunities. I want to maintain Scottsdale's winning formula of high amenities, strong property values, and low property taxes. We need to balance our open spaces with nurturing our economic drivers. As a mother of 3 in our public schools, I'm committed to making Scottsdale an even better city for them than it is for me. Learn more about me at tammycaputi.com. Thank you for being here today. I'm Tammy Caputi, and I'd be honored for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Caputi. And Mr. Auerbach.
I'm invested in Scottsdale's future. I'm a former Parks and Recreation Commissioner and previous vice chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Commission. I am the only candidate being considered from the hospitality industry. I'm in the industry. I understand what it takes to wisely enhance tourism. Let's protect all that made us love and choose Scottsdale and keep it thriving and growing for the future. You are my one more vote to winning. I need you to donate. I need you to knock on doors. I need you to talk to your neighbors. I need you to make phone calls, and I need you to share on social media with your friends. MikeForScottsdale.com. Mike, F-O-R, Scottsdale.com. www.mikeforscottsdale.com. Vote Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Auerbach. All right, that takes care of our closing statements. I want to thank you all for participating. I want to thank you all for indulging us with the format that allowed us to get through, quite frankly, more questions than I anticipated during this amount of time. So I really do appreciate that. And in closing, this forum has been recorded and will be available on Scottsdale City Channel 11, as well as via YouTube from the hosts, the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, Scott, and Scottsdale Leadership. Also will be shared by the Scottsdale Progress and Independent News Media. And thank you again to our hosts, the City of Scottsdale, and all of those that joined today. And thank you, everyone. That will conclude the program.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Scottsdale. Thank you, Scottsdale.
Thank you.